Hey there, developer. Welcome back. I'm glad you've decided to join me. So welcome to section one, the basics. We're going to be covering the basics. So what exactly do I mean by that? Well, the basics of JavaScript and data structures, of course. So for our first lesson, we're going to cover stacks. So let's go ahead and get started. So what exactly is a stack? Well, let's go ahead and compare it to dishes. So here's our stack of dishes. As you wash and dry your dishes, you pile them one on top of the other. Stacks are just like your dishes. The first one in and the last one out, meaning you never take the dish from the bottom of the stack because it's going to tumble all the dishes. So you pile them up bottom top, but you take out top to bottom. So just imagine these are grandma's special dishes, her precious china. No one would ever dare to take the bottom dish of that pile because who wants to get on grandma's bad side? So let's take a look at what our stack is going to look like when we actually go to code. All right, so let's go ahead and pull up our VS Code here, and we're going to go ahead and create our stack. So to create our stack, we're just going to simply create an empty array because we haven't made our stack. We haven't added the dishes to the stack yet, but we have a place that we're going to put them. So like, inside that china cabinet or on the shelf or when we wash and dry, this is where they're going to go. So we're going to do let dishes, and we're going to say that they're going to equal to an empty array in this case. And this is going to represent our stack of dishes. Okay, so let's go ahead and console log this. That's how we print things, just to double check our code. So, and I like to put comments in my code just so that I know where it's coming from. So before we clean the dishes, let's do this, and we'll do this, and we're just going to call dishes because that's what we called. So we'll go ahead and save this, and we'll go ahead and run our code. And there we go. It says before we clean our dishes, and we just have this empty array. All right, so we know we've built our pile or built or cleaned off the counter or wherever we're going to put our dishes. So now let's actually create the dishes. For JavaScript, obviously, we can't create a bunch of dishes. So we're just going to use a word. So we're going to do let the dishes, and we're going to set them equal to a string. And you know what? Since we're already talking about grandma's dishes, let's go ahead and just use grandma's dishes as our string. So what this means is that each letter of this string is going to represent one dish. Including spaces equals one dish. So one important thing before we go too much further to remember is that everything is done with indexes in JavaScript, and pretty much any other programming language as well. So in terms of these, we have, so grandma is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 characters long. So that's 8 dishes. The space makes it 9. And then 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. So we've got 15 dishes here. 15 dishes. All right. So now that we've got our 15 dishes created, we need to actually wash and dry them and put them into our pile. In order to do this, we have to first understand how to go through this string. So in JavaScript, the very first item in any array or string, whatever you want to call it, is called index 0. So the length of our array, or our string, excuse me, length equals 15 total indexes is going to equal 14 because we start at 0. So it's a very important distinction that we need to remember. So the length is 15 because there are 15 characters, but the actual index is only 14. So now we're going to go ahead and we're going to do a for loop. So we're going to create a for loop, create a for loop to go through the whole string. and we're going to add them to the pile. So what exactly is a for loop? For loops can get confusing for some people. So basically, I'm going to break it down into English basically for you. So here we're going to set the word for, and then we're going to start setting the requirements for our loop. So, and we're going to use the just D as our letter to represent the item that we're currently talking about. So if we want D to start at 0, because we always start at index 0, and then I want you to go as long as D is less than the dishes dot length, as in keep going as long as D is less than the length. So remember, the length is 15, but the indexes is 14. So that means it will go all the way to the end. As soon as D all of a sudden becomes equal to 15, that statement is no longer true because D is not less than 15, it's equal to. So therefore it exits the loop. So it's going to go through each individual item, follow the instructions, and then here's the next piece of our for loop. We have to say every time you go through the loop, follow the following instructions and then increase D by 1. So the first loop through D, of course, is going to be equal to 0. And then our next time through, after we follow the instructions that we have inside our curly brackets here, the next time through, because we have to do the D++, D is now equal to 1. So the first time through, D should be equal to G. And then the next time through, when D is equal to 1, it will actually represent R. So how do we actually get these dishes into our pile? Well, we call our pile, and we say push. So we want to push whatever the value of D currently is. And we word it this way on purpose. If we just put D, it would put the index number. That's not what we want. We want the actual value of D. So that's why we word it just like this: the dishes and then square brackets and then D. So that's our loop. Now, we can put a print statement, or rather a console log, inside our for loop, but that's an awful lot of console logs that we're going to have. That's 15 different console logs. Nobody wants that. However, just know that you can. So just in case it errors out, you can always fix it. So let's go ahead and console.log. We'll go ahead and leave ourselves a little message. So dishes are piled up, are in a pile. And now we're going to call dishes again. So notice when I hit save, this console log is still there. So I should get 2 console log statements. I'm going to go ahead and bring up my terminal area right down here, and I'm going to go ahead and hit play. And sure enough, we get both statements. We get before we clean the dishes, and then the dishes are in the pile. And you can see each individual thing, including that space, is now inside our new array. So that's how we add items to our stack. In the next video, we're going to talk about how to take them out of the stack. So stay tuned, and I can't wait to see you there. Hey developers, welcome back. We're still in lesson 1, learning about stacks, but now we're into part 2. So if you remember, part 1, we added our dishes to a pile because we were playing with dishes. Makes it easier. We were creating our stack of dishes. So now grandma wants to have a party because you know what? Grandma's the cool grandma. And we got 15 people she's got to entertain. So she's going to use the whole pile. So if you remember correctly, here we created our pile of dishes, our stack of dishes, I apologize. And we went ahead and console logged that so we can make sure that they were clean. So we can go ahead and reword this really quick. So before we stack the dishes, and then here we go is our dishes. And then we went through that for loop where we actually had the dishes are in a stack. All right, so now grandma wants to have a party. And we need to set the table. So let's create our table. And it's going to be an empty string. So remember, outside of the stack, which is up here, the dishes, which is an array, outside of that stack, our dishes is just a string of characters and indexes. So we have to set our table as a string. And in this case, we want it to be an empty string because, well, we don't start off with a set table. And besides that, we already know that our dishes are in a stack over on the china cabinet over there. So we did our table. Let's go ahead, console log our table. Console.log our table. Let's go ahead and save that. Let's go ahead and print our code just to make sure we've got this right. Alrighty then, so we've got our stack of dishes, or before we stack the dishes, our dishes are in a stack, and then our table. So we're gonna say our empty table. There we go. Alrighty. Now, just like before, we need to go through a for loop to add these dishes to our table. And remember, because they're not in a stack, we're taking them off one by one from the top down. Because they're not in a stack, they have to go back into a string. So we're just making an empty string to make it easy. So we have to do our for loop again. So we're going to do var, and we'll go ahead and keep using d. So var d equals 0. So we're starting off with the first index. And then we've got to make sure that d is, of course, again, less than the dishes. Dishes.length. And then, of course, so we've told it where to begin, where to stop. Now we need to tell it what to do each time. We want it to increase each time. Here's our instructions in here. So we're adding these. We're kind of doing a push, but we're not. We are adding them to our table, but because it's not an array, we can't use push. But we need to take them out of the dishes array. So we're going to do table here because that's where they're going to go. And we're going to do this fancy plus equals thing. And then we're going to do dishes.pop. Pop is a function that takes the last item in the array and takes it off, otherwise known as the last dish that was put into the stack. Take it off, which in our case is the top. So, and this plus equals means that we want to add each dish to the table. We don't want it to overwrite the last dish, because in code, if we don't put this plus equals, we just put plus or equals, it's plus is just going to add them together, but these aren't numbers, so that's not going to work. And we can't put equal because the first time through, table is going to be set equal to the S, and then the second time through, well, now we're setting table equal to E. That's not our goal. We want all 15 plates on the table. So we need to do this plus equals, which says whatever the value of table is, let's add this to it, or whatever's there in table, just add this to the end of it. And that's what this is going to do. So let's go ahead and do a console log. So the table is set. And table. And then just to make sure that we got all the dishes off the table, let's go ahead and do another console log. And see that the stack, or all the dishes, are out of the stack. And we'll call dishes here, just so that we know for sure that we did exactly what we wanted to do. All right, so let's clear our board here. Let's come up here. Let's go ahead and hit the play button. So we've got, before we stack the dishes, we knew that was good. Our dishes, our grandma's is called grandma's dishes. Here our dishes are in that nice little nifty handy dandy stack. Our empty table is of course an empty string, so therefore nothing prints. And now the table is set. Now a lot of you are probably like, now wait a minute, that does not look like what it's supposed to. Actually it is. Because remember, we're taking from the top, and the top one was the last one that we put up there. And when we spell the word grandma's dishes, the last letter we wrote was S. So therefore that's the last one on top. So therefore it has to be the last one to come off. So this is exactly the opposite of what it was. And now we can also see that dishes is empty again, which means we have successfully set the table with all 15 dishes. So that's all I have for this video. In the next part, we're actually going to play with the dishes a little bit. We're going to manipulate arrays just a little bit. So I can't wait to see you there. Until then, have a good day. Welcome back, developers, to our final part 3 of lesson 1, where we've been learning about stacks. So what we're going to do, and I'll add this CodePen file to our video, our resources. I've moved all our code over here for us. So we have our stack, we have our dishes. I've added some things in here. We'll walk through that in a minute. I've consoled out or commented out a lot of our console logs because we don't want to have all this extra stuff in here. So we've got everything else in here. With what we have here, let's go ahead and run our code. And we should just get what table and dishes are equal to. So what are we going to do next? Well, we're going to check to see if those two items, those two strings, are palindromes. What is a palindrome, you ask? Well, a palindrome is simply a word that is spelled the same forwards and backwards. Now, of course, we can see by looking at this, they are clearly not spelled the same forward and backwards. So how do we actually do this? Well, I've got the function already written for us, and here we are. This is what it's saying. We're going to do an if statement. We're going to check things. So if table is exactly equal to the dishes, then please do these instructions, which in this case is console log, that the dishes is a palindrome. Otherwise, we fall to our else statement, where we're going to print the dishes is not a palindrome. So what does the 3 equal signs mean? The 3 equal signs is very important here. The 3 equal signs are telling us that they are exactly equal. That means capital to lowercase. So like a capital S and a lowercase s, they're not exactly equal. They're two different things. A 1 and a 1 inside of quotes are not exactly the same thing. If there was 2 equal signs, the ones would be equal to each other because the values of them are the same. And in most cases, capital versus non-capital would typically also work at that point as well. But we want to make sure that they are exactly equal. Space for space, letter for letter, capital for capital. So let's go ahead and run our code. And sure enough, we get Grandma's dishes is not a palindrome. So, like I said, up here, I did a couple extra little lines of code here. We're going to comment out the Grandma's dishes. And we're going to comment in this guy because you can only have one let statement named the same thing. And this is just simply so we don't have to change our code at all. So now dishes is equal to taco cat. So let's go ahead and run our code just like that. Let's clear the board and run our code. Sure enough, taco cat is a palindrome. So, well, you know what? Taco cat should really have a space here. Let's add a space there. Or actually, let's undo that. Undo that. Let's just do taco cat again, but let's do it correctly. So let the dishes equal taco cat. So this should not equal the same because there's a space in there. So, and it is not because when it's backwards, it's not quite the same. So like I said, spaces matter. All right, so let's check out this one. Let's change this really quick. So we can see right now that technically SOS is a palindrome, but because I capitalized the S, it should come back that it is not equal. And sure enough, it does. So let's comment that out and let's go ahead and put this in here. So let the dishes equal SOS all lowercase. And let's clear this and run it again. Sure enough, it is. Awesome. All right. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to comment these guys out because we don't need to keep playing with them. We'll go ahead and comment you out and you out. We don't need to keep playing with them. So why keep having it in there? So now we're going to do something else, and we're going to play with a stack, which is a function, which is why I have it capitalized here. Let me undo this really quick. All right, so we've got a function. We're using var stack with a capital. It just means it's just another way of writing things, okay? We're going to set our count to 0, and we're going to have storage. We're going to work with a trunk. So we are adding things to a trunk. Okay, removes and returns the value at the, adds a value. So we're going to change that to adds and an item to the trunk. Here it's going to remove and return the items in the trunk, or removes and returns, because what are we returning here? Returning the number of items in the trunk. Okay, and this guy, well, this is just simply going to tell us the number of items in the trunk. And this one is going to return the last item added or removed from the trunk. Typically it's added. All right, so there's our code. So here we're starting our count as 0 because our trunk is always starting as empty. And here's where we can add our value. We're going to push the value that we give it later on, and we're going to put it into the trunk, increasing the count, which is why we have that count plus plus. Here again is where we're removing items from the trunk. So if it's equal to 0, exactly equal to 0, we just want you to return undefined. In this case, it's not going to return anything. It's just going to be like an empty space. Otherwise, and let's go ahead and put an else statement in here, because you know what? Else statements look a lot neater. So let's cut this. And we're going to do, and I don't like extra spaces here, so else. We're going to do count, subtract, and we're going to have, we're going to change the value. We're going to create a value called result, and we're going to do that. Here we've got the number of our items in the trunk. And here we've got this cool thing where we can peek at the last item added to the trunk. So this line here, that's where we're actually stating our trunk, and we're saying that it's equal to a brand new stack. So let's go ahead and push the number 1 into our trunk. Okay. As suspected, we get nothing. All right, so let's add 2 because that's the logical next number, and run. Okay, nothing's showing up as we suspected because we haven't actually printed anything yet. So let's go ahead and print our things. Okay, so the last item that we put into our trunk, like we already knew, was the 2. Let's go ahead and copy. Let's go ahead and add this right there. Let's clear this and let's run. Okay, so there we can see we added that and we added that. Now let's go ahead and take something out of our trunk and then take a peek. Okay, oh, I should have cleared my board first. There we go. Let's try that again. Okay, so that one is putting our first item in, our second item in. We are taking one out and taking a peek because our pop function does have a print statement in there. So there we go. All righty. So instead, let's go ahead and push our grandma's dishes in. And let's go ahead and uncomment these and oops. And let's see what it all does. Let's clear this. All right, so there we go. We're down to grandma's dishes left, and then we have just the last item in there, which is the 1. All right, folks. So that's all I have right now. So that's the ending of lesson 1. So we're still in section 1. Lesson 2 is going to be sets. Can't wait to see you in the next video. See you soon. Hey developers, welcome back. We're still in section 1 and the basics. So now we're moving on to lesson 2. Lesson 2, we're going to talk about sets. What is a set? Well, let's think of sets as a collection. So we've got a set of words over here on the left. In the middle, we've got a set of numbers. On the right, we have a mixed set, strings and numbers, or in this case, words and numbers. So what does this mean for us? Well, sometimes we're collecting data and we need to know different things about our data. So sometimes it's nice to know, we want to make sure that in sets that there's never any repeats. There doesn't have to be any specific order to it. But the most important thing about sets is there are no repeats. So let's go ahead and start building our sets. We're going to use coins. We're going to build a coin collection, actually 3 coin collections. So we're going to do function coins because we're building coin collections. And the first thing we're going to need to do is we're going to need a place to store them. So we're going to do this. Box of coins. So var, we're going to call it coin box. We're going to set it equal to an empty array. All right. So we have to have a way to be able to check to see if we have this coin this year in it or not. So we're going to do this, which is going to be referring to our collection name. And we're going to ask it if it has. And our element is going to be what we're asking it. So does our penny collection have a penny with the year 1980, for example? Yes or no? And here's where we have that truth or Boolean statement. So our coin box index of, and we're checking against that element, like I said, and we're checking to see if it's true or false. And this is how we do that. Okay. So let's also make a function so that we can have a way to return what's actually in our collection. So we want to return, well, the values. Okay. This one doesn't take any arguments because we're actually looking for what's in there. So we don't want to pass anything in. So return, and we're just going to return our coin box. All right. So let's go ahead and add a couple comments in here before we forget. So this checks if the coin year is already in the box. This allows us to see what's in our box. Okay. So now we have to have a way to actually add coins to our set, our collection. Okay. So we're going to do this dot add. So pennies add. We're going to add to our pennies function. What year are we adding? And what do we do when we actually add it? Well, we do need to check against it. Okay. So here we're saying if our pennies collection does not have this element, then please do the following. we're going to say coin box dot push that year. So we're going to say, okay, we don't have it. Go ahead, add it to the box. If we do have it, we're just going to simply return false, because we're also going to return true here. Okay. So it's not going to allow us to add multiple things. So let's go ahead and add our comment here. Coins to our box if we don't already have the year. All right. So what else should we probably do? Well, maybe we gotta go shopping. We need to use one of those quarters. Really don't want to, but we gotta do it. So this dot remove. So from our quarters collection, we're probably gonna have to remove something, because you know what? Sometimes you have to put those quarters in those carts and stuff. We might need something. So our function, what are we removing? So what year coin are we removing? So if it has the elements, so if it has that year, say we have 1980 and 1978 in our quarters collection, but we say, you know what, 1981 was a bad year. I'm just going to get rid of that coin. Well, we need to make sure we have that coin in that collection to start off with. So we're going to do another truth test. So index, oops, equals coin box dot index of. So we're just checking to make sure that we have this. And here's where we kind of split it in down the middle. This allows us to split it into two parts, basically. So we're basically being able to, or no, excuse me. So the first one is where to stop within our in thing. So we have 3 coins, which are indexes 0, 1, and 2. So our index is going to be, say, whatever the value of coin number 2 is. So that's going to be our coin number 2 would be index of 1. And the next value here, this 1 says, okay, remove 1 item. So if we had a 2 there, we're saying we're removing 2 items. We just want to remove 1 item. So we're checking to see if there is an index with this number, and we're assigning it here. We're giving it that number here. So if the coin box has the year of 1981, we're going to give it that, we're going to call it index. So we're going to go to the index, take out that 1 element, and then we're going to, of course, return true because it had it. If it didn't have it, we're of course going to just return false. We're not going to take out another coin because we didn't tell it to. Okay, so if our box has the coin, has the year we asked for, go to that spot and remove it. Okay, so sometimes you can think of these in slots in our coins, or like a CD case is another way to look at it. If we have the CD, the Lion King soundtrack, go ahead and go to where it's located in our CD rack and remove that 1 CD. We don't want to remove any of the other ones, just the Lion King soundtrack. If we don't have it, then don't remove it, because we don't want to listen to anything else right now. Okay, so what else can we do? Or what else should we do? Well, maybe we want to know how big our coin collection is. So we're going to give it a size, and we're call it function. And we don't need to pass anything in it because we're checking inside our box. So we don't need to do anything. We don't need to pass anything into this. So we're just going to return our coin box dot length. So remember from before that our length is how many characters or how many elements are within it. It does not represent the index, because the index is always technically 1 number smaller. because it starts with 0. So if we have 3 coins, we have index 0, 1, and 2, but our length is 3 because we have 3 coins. So we'll go ahead and put this in here, add our comment. So checking to see the length or size of our collection. All right, so we're just cruising along here. We're doing good. We'll go ahead, didn't mean to do that. We'll go ahead and leave that here for right now. We can do some other things with that later. We'll add on to our code in a little bit in part 2. But now we need to actually create our coin collections. So var pennies, that's our first collection here. And it's going to be new. And we called it, what do we call it up here? We called it coins. All right, so coins. Okay, and then we said dimes. So new coins. And then var quarters. All right, so now we have our 3 coin collections. Let's go ahead and just do a quick console.log and check the size of our current collections, which it should equal 0 because we don't have anything in there. So how big is our penny collection? So, and to do that, we are going to pass in pennies dot size. Make sure we add those parentheses there because it is a function. We'll go ahead and just copy this, change the words, make our lives easy. All right, so our quarter and dime collection. And quarters is pluralized. All right, so let's go ahead and save that and let's make sure that this worked. So right now, as we suspected, our collections are empty. So let's add something. So pennies dot add, and we're going to add our 1980 coin because we were talking about that. Pennies dot add. Let's add that 1981 coin. And let's do quarters dot add. Here's that where our 1981 is going to come in again. Dimes dot add 1990. Okay, so we got a couple coins in our collections now. We're doing pretty good. So let's go ahead and just print these again. Okay, let's hit save. Clear this and run our code. So as we suspected, our first print statement, of course, is going to be 0 because that it lays before we're adding. Our penny collection now has 2 coins. Our quarter collection has 1. Dime collection has 1. All right, so now we're cooking. So how about we check, let's check the values. So console.log, what are the coin values or coin years in our penny collection? Okay, and we're going to do pennies dot values. Make sure we add our parentheses. Go ahead, copy this, change the couple words because we don't want to retype everything if we don't have to. Okay, let's just change this to dimes, quarters, and quarters. Alrighty. We're going to go ahead and comment out these guys because we don't need to keep printing that one. I did hit save. Let's go ahead and clear our board and do this. There we go. So we see how big our collection is, and now we can also see the values that we have in there. All right. So let's go ahead and remove that 1981 coin that we really didn't like. Let's go ahead and take it out. Actually, you know what? Let's try to remove a 1990 coin from our penny collection because we were pretty sure we put it in our penny collection. So we're going to do pennies dot remove, and we're going to say 1990. Okay. And now we're just going to go ahead and let's go ahead and just copy these guys over and let's print them again and let's see if there's any changes. All right. So it doesn't look like there was any changes, as it shouldn't be, because nothing changed. So there we go. So like I said, nothing changed. Well, what if we changed this to, let me see, we set our penny collection. Let's change that to an 8. Hit save. Come down here. So we start off with our penny collection with 2 coins. Here's our coins. Now our penny collection is 1. And this is what we have. So that's all I have for part 1 of the sets. Can't wait to see it in part 2, where we start comparing our sets against each other. All right, I'll see you in the next video. Welcome back, developers, to part 2 of sets. So this time we're going to do a couple things. Before we actually do anything, I commented out a lot of things, and I did add some things. So let's go ahead and run our code and see what our sets currently look like. So it looks like our penny collection has 3 pennies. Our dimes collection has 2, and our quarters collection also has 2. So we'll go ahead and clear that. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go ahead and we're going to compare 2 different 2 coin collections to each other to see what they have in common. So okay, so we're going to put collection 2 here because we're going to compare collection 1 against collection 2. And we're going to put common here. So this is what they have in common. So new coins, because we're creating basically a new set. So collection number 1, we want to grab our values. So collection number 1, for each value, we're going to choose the element. Instead of typing element, I'm just using E. So if collection number 2 has that value, then add it to the common. Okay. And then go ahead and return it. All right. So there's that. And we're also going to want to go ahead and compare. Why not go ahead and write it now. Let's compare what's different between 2 collections. So this dot difference, I'm just going to use diff in this case because I feel like typing out difference. And we can really put whatever we want here as long as we know what it is. And it's equal to a function. And of course, we're going to do collection 2 again because it makes sense. So this time we're going to compare the difference. We're going to call it a difference set. Coins. Set up collection 1 here. This dot values. And now we'll go ahead and compare them. It's going to look a lot like the one right before it. So we're going to do a for each statement for each element in the array for each set. We're going to check. Except this time we're going to do if it is not in collection 2. Oh, I'm going to do that. Okay, so if it is not in collection 2, we're going to add it. So if what we're looking for, if that current element is not in there, we're going to add it, and then we're going to go ahead and return that. Okay, so let's come down here and let's write our statements and how we're actually going to check it. So console.log. Go ahead and do this really quick. And let's compare our pennies. And what did we call our compare? We called it intersect. Our pennies to our quarters. And let's print back our values. All right. And then we're going to do the same thing for a difference one. Except let's do dimes.diff. And we'll compare that to our quarters. Values. Okay, let's go ahead and add our little statements in there so we know where these are coming from. What do our penny collection and penny and quarter collections have in common? Okay, and then down here, what do our dime and quarter collection have that's different? All right, as long as I didn't spell anything wrong, let's run our code. All right, so here we've got our set. So what do our penny and quarter collections have in common? And it prints out 1981 and 1978. And if we actually go and look at it, we can definitely see that that is true. So what do our dime and quarter collections have that is different? And it looks like 1990 and 1989. So it looks like none of those are in the quarter collection. It doesn't tell us which collection doesn't have it. It just says that it's different. So that's it for our sets. I'll see you in the next lesson, which is cues. Hey developers, welcome back to our final lesson in the basics section. We're going to be talking about cues. We'll probably break this down into at least 2 parts, if not 3. So what are cues? Well, let's compare them to our stack of dishes. So our stack of dishes, remember, they were first in, last out, meaning when we piled our dishes up, the first one went down on the bottom, and the last one obviously went on the top, but we never take from the bottom of the dishes because remember, grandma would get mad. So we always took from the top. So our cue is, well, it's like a queue, a line queue. So we're going on to this new ride. In our case, we're going to go ahead and use a food line. So we have the front of our ride, or the front of our line here, where we actually end up getting our food or go on the ride. And we have the end of the line where people get added. So we do this every day. We always stand in a line. We know what this is like. But how does it look in code? How exactly do we figure this out? Well, let's figure that out. So we've got this here. We're going to have to, of course, create our queue. All right. And we're going to call it, we're going to do this right here. We're going to set it to an array like we have been doing. So there's our line. All right. So first we're going to go ahead and create ourselves a print function. We're going to make our lives a little easier this time. Function. And all this is simply going to do is just help print our lines. Log line. All right, we got that out of the way. All right, so we know how to print our line, see who's in it, who's not in it, so on and so forth. Well, let's add somebody to the line. So, and to add it, we call them NQ. I'm probably pronouncing it wrong, but that's okay. ENQUEU. E. Yes, okay. So this is how we add someone to the line. Basically, we're just adding them onto the queue. In this case, we're going to call it element just because that's our normal syntax. So this is going to be the line that we're in. We're going to add someone to the line, and we're just going to simply line.push. Our person. All right. So let's create ourselves a line and add some people to it. All right. So our food truck equals new and queue. So we've created our food truck. So let's go ahead and print our food truck first and see what we get. We shouldn't have anybody at our food truck. We haven't quite opened yet. As you guessed, nothing printed out. So let's go ahead and let's add a little message in here. All right, let's try that. And let's make sure we at least get that. All right, so we have an empty line. All right, that's awesome. Food truck opens. All right, so food truck. We're going to add somebody to it. Let's go ahead and add person A. And let's use names. Jane Doe has been added to our food truck line. Let's go ahead and print that. All right, so our food truck opened. Let's go ahead and add this into a print statement because why not? It'd be kind of cool to see that. Console.log food truck opens. All right, so there we go. Add a little fun into our code here. All right, so our food truck arrives but is closed. Our line has the following: nobody. Now our food truck opens and our line has Jane Doe in it. All right, so let's add somebody else. So let's do food truck dot NQ. And you know what? Her husband's coming. He wants food too. All right, let's clear this. And let's make sure we have 2 people in our line. All right, we do. Alrighty then. So now let's make it so that Jane here, she's gotten her food. So we have to take her out of the queue. And we do DQ to do that. So return. And we can do this. We can do console.log. Okay. And then, of course, we have to return. All right. So now we're going to go down here and we're going to go ahead and we're going to let her know that she's got her food. We don't have to put anything in here because we already know that it's going to be the first person to leave. And I just realized that. So element, that does not need to be in here. Oh, I didn't put it in there. So it's not element. So we're gonna actually take that out. So all right. So we're just gonna let her leave the line. Then we're gonna do our print again. So food truck dot print. Let's clear this. Oop, I spelled it wrong, didn't I? Yes, I did. All right. So we're gonna go ahead and put another console log in here. So console.log. Jane got her food. So Jane got her food, and our line now just has John Doe. All right. So we have added people to our line and we've taken people out of our line. So in the next video, we're going to go ahead and go over how big our line is and whether our line is empty or not. And then we're going to go over after that priority queues. So I'll see you in the next video. Hey developers, welcome back to part 2 of queues. So if you remember, we started off with our food truck arriving, but it was closed. And then once we opened up, Jane joined the line and then John joined the line right behind her. And then over here, we saw that Jane got her food and then therefore she left the line and John was left. Well, since then, we've had Pearl, our cat, and Coppertone, the beagle, join our line. So let's go ahead and take a look, make sure we got all that going on. Make sure everything's running just the way it should. There we go. So there's our line. John Doe, John Smith, Pearl, and Coppertone. So our line's getting pretty long, but is it long enough that it requires a couple more employees to come in and help us out? Well, let's find out. Let's do this dot size. Don't need to pass in any parameters because we're just checking the length of our line. So we're going to go ahead and return our line dot length. And then we'll come down here and we'll put this inside of a console log. So we're going to say the length of our line is and we're going to call food truck dot size, just like that. Okay, we're going to go ahead and close off some of these print statements because we just don't need them anymore. We'll go ahead and leave that our food truck came and went. Don't need this one. Jane got her food. We can leave a couple of those. That's fine. All right, let's clear our board and let's run. All right, so the food truck arrived. Our food truck opened. Jane gets her food. The line has the following, and the length of the line is currently sitting at 4 people. So that's not too bad. So let's check to see if the line is empty or not. So let's create a function. And to check to see if our line is empty or not. And to do that, we're just going to return line.length and see if it's equal to 0. So the food truck is closed. Let's go ahead and add our thing in right here. So let's do console.log. Okay. And we are going to do food truck dot is empty. And let's see what we get. All right. And we can see it returned true. So let's come down here. Let's go ahead and check this down here. And we should get no. We should get the response of false. So let's clear this and run it. And sure enough, we do. All right. So now we've added people, taken them away, or let them get their food. And we've checked the size of our line, and we checked to see if our line is empty or not. So in the next video, we're going to go over priority queues. We're going to make sure that our handicapped and senior citizens get head of the line privileges. So see you in the next video. Welcome back, developers. So glad you joined me. Welcome to our final part of queues and the final part of section 1 as well. So as I stated before, we're going to be working with a priority queue this time, meaning we're going to give priority to certain people who come to our food truck because of, say, their senior citizens, disabilities, whatever, because we like to take care of our own. So I started us off with a couple functions already. So I created our priority queue. I called it Better Food. I gave us a line, just like we had before. I gave us a way to print the line and a way to check to see if the line is empty. So let's go ahead and run our code and see what this looks like to start with. As you can see, our line has the following, and it is empty. And it is asking us, is the line empty? And we came back with true. So now we need to start adding people to our line. But remember that we need to check their priority. So to start off with, this dot QUEV, we're going to go ahead, of course, check this function. We're going to use E to check our people. So first we want to say, so if is empty, then we're going to go ahead and do line.push that element. So if someone comes to our line and the line is empty, we're going to go ahead and just put them right in line. We don't need to worry about them right now. We're good to go. All right. So otherwise, we have our else statement. So otherwise, we're going to create an added, and we're going to set that to false because we haven't added them. We're going to have to go through a for loop. So if our line already has people, we're going to have to go through them to find out what their priority is. So we're going to use P for our people, and it's going to equal 0. And then as long as P is less than line dot length, we're going to keep going through our loop and increase each time. And here's the instructions we're going to give. So to start off with, we're going to go if priority 1, or if index 1, so, or priority 1, line, the index we're on. So if the first one is less than the priority, okay, we're going to go ahead and put them right in the middle. Splice. So we've got, oh, I used I. I did not mean to use I meant to use P there. Sorry about that. So P, comma 0, comma E. And now added is true. And we're going to hit a break. Okay. So if not added, line.push, okay. We're going to go ahead and hit this here so we can remember where we go. So here we're checking, like I said, we're adding people to our priority line, checking to see if their priority is lower than the person in front of them. So let's go ahead and let these people exit the line as well. So we're still going to leave the line in the correct order. Line.shift. Return value. Wrong one, sorry. Return got food. Index is 0. Okay. So let's go ahead and add some of our other things that we had before. Let's also in this case, let's also check who's in front. Wouldn't that be kind of cool? So function. So let's find out who's in front of our line. So return line index 0. Oops. All right. So let's add some folks to our line here. All right. So better food dot enquue this, and we're going to go ahead and add a veteran, and he's going to have a priority of 2, or she, could be either or, you never know. Better food. Oh, I spelled food wrong up there. That's going to cause me problems later. There we go. enquue. Let's add a let's add grandma. She gets privileges above the veteran. All right, so high school. Well, we'll just say student. Okay. All right. Okay. Let's go ahead and print our line now. Let's see what order they came back in. All right, so our line has the following. So grandma was there first, so she got it. And then the man on crutches came in, and then our Navy veteran with a value of 2, and then our student. All right. So let's go ahead and better food dot DQU EUE. And we'll go ahead and print our line again. So grandma should have gotten her food now. Yep, so it looks like grandma got her food. Interesting. It glitches like that sometimes. Oh, I copied the whole thing. I see what I did. I didn't glitch. I messed up. Let's try that one more time. All right, so there we go. We got the man on crutches, the Navy veteran, and the student. All right, so let's add a few more people to our line real quick. N Q U E U E. Let's gonna add. I'm gonna go ahead and add Grandpa. He gets that 1. Another veteran's coming in, so we're gonna add him to the line. We're gonna go ahead and let somebody come out of the line. So copy. We'll let a couple people come out of line. Okay. And now before we print our line, let's go ahead and console.log our better food dot front, so we can see who's at the front of the line. And then let's go ahead and print our line one more time. Okay, clear our board and hit run. All right, so it looks like Navy veterans now at the front of our line, and our line has the following in it: Navy veteran, another veteran, and our student. So that is all I have for this video. We have finished our section.